I am Francine Thompson, 67 years old, and never thought my own daughter would throw scalding coffee at me. All because I refused to hand over my credit card to my 16-year-old grandson for his third gaming console this year. The coffee burned through my blouse, but the betrayal burned deeper. 20 years of supporting Amanda through everything, only to be treated like an ATM. If you are watching this video, please let me know where you are from and hit subscribe to follow my journey of reclaiming my life. For 40 years, I taught elementary school in Minnesota, pouring my heart into shaping young minds and building a modest but comfortable life. When my beloved husband Harold died of a heart attack 2 years ago, the foundation of my world crumbled. The house we shared for 35 years suddenly felt too empty, too full of ghosts. When my daughter Amanda suggested I move in with her and my grandson Jordan, it seemed like a blessing. A chance to be close to family during my retirement to help with Jordan and to find purpose again after losing Harold. Amanda has always been a hardworking woman. As a hospital administrator, she juggles long hours and significant responsibilities. Her divorce from Thomas 5 years ago left her a single mother shouldering the burden of raising Jordan alone. I watched her struggle, financially stretched thin by an expensive lifestyle she refused to adjust. The house she purchased after the divorce was beautiful, but far beyond what she could reasonably afford. Designer furniture filled rooms that were showcased more than lived in. Jordan, her only child, became the center of her universe, and she compensated for the absence of his father by indulging his every whim. My financial situation was stable, if not luxurious. A teacher's pension doesn't make anyone wealthy, but Harold and I had always been careful savers. The life insurance money after his death provided additional security, a nest egg I planned to use for occasional travel, and eventually assisted living when I grew too old to manage independently. When I moved in with Amanda, I began contributing significantly to household expenses. I paid for groceries, covered utilities, and handled many extras like Jordan's school supplies and family dinners out. It seemed only fair to help given that they had opened their home to me. The warning signs appeared gradually, so subtle at first that I dismissed them. Amanda began borrowing money for small emergencies without repaying it. $20 here, $50 there, adding up over time. When we dined out, she would suddenly discover she had forgotten her wallet, leaving me to cover $200 bills. Jordan's requests started small too. School supplies that mysteriously needed replacement every few weeks. Money for field trips that doubled what other parents reported paying. When I expressed concerns, Amanda would dismiss them with a laugh, calling me stingy despite my generosity. One afternoon, reviewing my credit card statement, I noticed purchases I hadn't made at stores I never visited. When questioned, Amanda casually mentioned she had borrowed my card for a few necessities. Jordan and I were once close. As a young boy, he would curl beside me for stories, his small hand in mine, eyes wide with wonder at tales of adventure. He collected rocks and insects, proudly showing me each new treasure. When did that curious, affectionate child transform into the entitled teenager who now barely acknowledged my presence unless he wanted something? His life revolved around video games, expensive sneakers, and impressing friends with the latest technology. His manipulation tactics became increasingly sophisticated. Tears would appear on command when initial requests were denied. If crying failed, anger followed with slammed doors and accusations of favoritism toward imagined cousins. Then came the silent treatment, sometimes lasting days until I relented. My attempts to connect through shared activities or conversations were rejected with eye rolls or monosyllabic responses. Despite these challenges, I clung to warm memories of better times. Family trips to Lake Superior, where Amanda and I collected driftwood while Harold taught Jordan to skip stones across the water. Afternoons in our old kitchen teaching teenage Amanda to bake Harold's favorite chocolate chip cookies, flour dusting our noses as we laughed. Evenings spent reading bedtime stories to young Jordan, different voices for each character, making him giggle until his eyes grew heavy with sleep. Holiday traditions of stringing popcorn garlands for the Christmas tree while singing carols badly but enthusiastically. Photos around Amanda's house captured these moments, frozen happiness I hoped might somehow be recaptured. Perhaps with patience and love, those connections could be rebuilt. The first truly expensive request came 3 months after I moved in. Jordan burst into the kitchen during dinner preparation, waving his phone with an advertisement for the latest gaming console. His current system, purchased less than a year ago, sat perfectly functional in the entertainment center. "Grandma, I need this new PlayStation." Everyone at school is getting one, he announced, as if stating an undeniable fact. The release date is next week, and we need to pre-order tonight, or they might sell out, Amanda immediately added, supporting his urgency without question. I hesitated, stirring the pasta sauce slowly. That seems like quite an expense for something you already have a version of, Jordan. Maybe you could save up for it. I could match what you earn from odd jobs or allowance. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Jordan's face darkened, and Amanda shot me a look of disbelief, as if I had suggested he give up oxygen rather than wait for a luxury item. Throughout dinner, tension hung heavy in the air, with pointed sighs and meaningful glances between mother and son that clearly positioned me as the villain in their narrative. Later that evening, passing by Jordan's room to collect laundry, I overheard a conversation that stopped me cold in the hallway. "Don't worry about it," Amanda was saying, her voice low but distinct. "We just need to work on convincing Grandma. She has plenty of money sitting in those accounts doing nothing." Jordan's laugh had an edge I'd never heard before. "You mean the bank? That's all she is anyway." Instead of correcting him, Amanda laughed too. "Well, your grandfather left her well taken care of. It's not like she needs all that money for herself. We're family after all." They continued discussing my savings as if they were an untapped resource rightfully theirs for the taking. Plans were made about approaching me again, with Jordan suggesting I might be more generous if he mentioned college aspirations, though he had shown zero interest in academics. The next morning, I addressed what I had overheard as calmly as possible over breakfast, hoping for clarification or perhaps an apology. "I couldn't help overhearing your conversation last night," I began carefully. "I was concerned about how you referred to me as the bank." Amanda's eyes widened briefly before her expression shifted to dismissal. "Oh, Mom, it was just a joke. You're being way too sensitive." Jordan barely looked up from his phone. "Sorry you got offended, Grandma," he muttered, the non-apology hanging empty in the air between us. "I'm happy to contribute to this household, but I don't appreciate being viewed primarily as a financial resource." I continued, my voice steadier than my hands in my lap. Amanda stood abruptly, carrying her half-full coffee mug to the sink. "We're going to be late. We'll talk about this later," she said, effectively ending the conversation. As they gathered their things to leave, I sat alone at the table, wondering for the first time if moving into my daughter's home had been a mistake. Over the following weeks, financial demands increased with alarming frequency. Jordan needed $2,000 for a school trip to Washington, D.C. Though other parents mentioned their costs were closer to $800, Amanda's car suddenly required extensive repairs she couldn't possibly cover. My credit card showed mysterious online purchases, from gaming and clothing websites I'd never visited. Money disappeared from my purse, $50 here, $20 there always when I was in the shower or asleep, bills I had agreed to pay. Somehow doubled, with Amanda vaguely mentioning rate increases when questioned. After a particularly expensive month, I attempted to establish clearer boundaries. One Sunday afternoon, I sat Amanda down with a carefully prepared budget outlining what I could reasonably contribute to household expenses. "This seems fair to me," I explained, pointing to the substantial monthly contribution I was proposing. "It covers my share of utilities, food, and some extras, but still allows me to maintain my savings for future needs." Amanda initially agreed, nodding along as I explained my thinking. But within days, the budget was ignored, with new emergencies requiring immediate financial intervention. When I suggested Jordan might benefit from a part-time job to learn financial responsibility and fund some of his wants, Amanda reacted as if I had suggested child labor in a coal mine. "He needs to focus on school and sports," she insisted, though his grades were mediocre and he had quit the basketball team months ago. "Besides, what kind of grandmother wants to see her grandson flipping burgers?" I organized a family meeting to discuss household finances more broadly, hoping a structured conversation might lead to better understanding. It ended with Amanda storming out of the room, accusing me of being obsessed with money and trying to control everyone, while Jordan watched silently, learning from his mother's example how to respond when financial boundaries were established. As autumn turned to winter, Jordan's manipulative tactics intensified beyond what I thought possible from a 16-year-old. When denied immediate financial gratification, he would implement the silent treatment, walking past me as if I were invisible for days. Elaborate lies about school requirements materialized regularly, each necessitating immediate payment. "It's for my grade. Grandma became a common refrain, though calls to other parents often revealed these requirements existed only in Jordan's imagination. One morning, I woke to find my wallet moved from its usual place on my dresser, credit cards rearranged, and $20 missing. When confronted, Jordan feigned offense at the accusation, but his new sneakers appeared the following day. Valuable items began breaking accidentally when he was upset, including a porcelain figurine Harold had given me on our 25th anniversary. Most concerning was how he recruited Amanda to fight his battles, whispering conversations that stopped when I entered rooms, followed by Amanda approaching me about whatever new thing Jordan needed. Amanda's attitude toward me shifted dramatically during this period. The daughter, who once called daily after Harold died to check on me, now treated me with cool detachment in her home. Family decisions were made without my input, from vacation plans to home repairs that I would inevitably help fund. Dinner conversations excluded me through inside jokes and references to events I hadn't been invited to attend. Comments about how cheap I had become peppered her conversation, often accompanied by reminders of how generous Harold had always been, as if my financial boundaries somehow dishonored his memory. "If you really love Jordan," she said one evening after I declined to purchase the $400 designer jacket he wanted, "you wouldn't hesitate to help him fit in with his friends." My world contracted as isolation increased. No longer invited to family meals, I often ate alone in my room while hearing laughter from the dining room. When Amanda and Jordan talked, doors closed, firmly, conversations hushed when I approached. Friends who called were told I was unavailable, though I sat feet away, clearly available. Phone calls with my sister or former colleagues were taken in my bedroom, the only space that felt remotely safe. Even there, I sometimes found evidence someone had been through my belongings, drawers slightly ajar, papers rearranged. The situation reached a painful new low around Jordan's 16th birthday. For weeks, he had been dropping hints about the expensive laptop he expected, showing me online listings for models costing over $2,000. Instead, I had spent weeks creating a handmade quilt incorporating T-shirts from his childhood sports teams and events, along with a $500 savings bond toward college. The evening of his birthday dinner, Jordan unwrapped the carefully packaged quilt, his face falling immediately. "Where's my laptop?" he demanded, letting the quilt drop to the floor. "The quilt represents special memories," I explained, reaching to pick it up, "and the savings bond will grow toward your education." "I don't want your stupid quilt," he shouted, stepping on the fabric as he stood. "Everyone knows you have the money. You're just being selfish." Amanda, rather than addressing his disrespect, put her arm around him consolingly. "Mom knows how much you wanted that laptop for school," she said, giving me a pointed look. "Maybe she'll reconsider what education is really worth to her." The stress began affecting my health in measurable ways. Sleep became elusive, with nights spent staring at the ceiling, replaying conversations, and wondering where I had gone wrong. My appetite diminished until clothes hung loose on my frame, 10 pounds lost in a month. At my regular checkup, Dr. Winters noted my elevated blood pressure with concern. "Anything causing you unusual stress lately, Francine?" she asked, reviewing my numbers. I considered telling her everything, the words rising to my lips before I swallowed them back. How could I admit my own daughter was essentially extorting me? That my grandson viewed me as nothing more than a financial resource? The shame kept me silent. "Just adjusting to retirement," I answered instead, accepting a prescription I suspected wouldn't address the real problem. Without telling Amanda, I scheduled an appointment with Leonard Grayson, a financial advisor Harold and I had consulted occasionally over the years. In his quiet office, surrounded by degrees and sailing photographs, I finally unburdened myself to a neutral party. "I'm concerned about protecting what I have left," I concluded, after explaining the situation. "At this rate, my savings will be depleted within 2 years." Leonard's expression remained professional, but his eyes reflected concern. "I'm troubled by what you're describing, Francine. We should take immediate steps to secure your accounts." A thorough review revealed Amanda had attempted to access my investment accounts, calling the company while pretending to be me, though security questions had prevented success. Leonard helped me set up new accounts. Amanda didn't know about transferring funds to protect them. We created an emergency fund that would allow me independence if needed. "What you're describing," he said carefully, as our meeting concluded, "has elements of elder financial abuse. Have you considered speaking with someone about your legal options?" His words hung in the air, the term abuse making real, what I had been reluctant to name. January brought bitter Minnesota cold, and the final confrontation I never saw coming. Jordan's latest gaming system had met an untimely end during what Amanda described as an accident, though the dented wall suggested one of his rage incidents when losing a game. Within days, he was campaigning for the newest model recently released and perpetually sold out. This wasn't just the console, but included expensive accessories, premium controllers, and 6 games at $70 each. The total package would exceed $800, not counting the online subscription services he would inevitably request. It's an investment in his happiness, Amanda argued when I expressed concern about the cost. After everything he's been through with the divorce, don't you want to see him happy? The manipulation was transparent, but no less effective for its obviousness. Of course, I wanted my grandson happy, but I was increasingly convinced that material acquisitions weren't filling whatever void he was experiencing. Still, Amanda gave her full support despite the household budget already being strained by holiday spending and increased heating costs during the brutal winter. The confrontation occurred on a Saturday morning. I was enjoying rare solitude reading in the living room while Amanda attended a hair appointment. Jordan appeared suddenly before me, hand extended expectantly. "I need your credit card," he announced without preamble. "The GameStop downtown just got a shipment of the new PlayStation, but they're going fast. I need to go right now." I closed my book slowly, buying time to prepare for the inevitable conflict. "Jordan, we discussed this. That's a very expensive purchase, and you already have several gaming systems." "Those are old and lame," he countered, his voice rising. "Everyone has the new one. I told my friends I'd be online with them tonight." "I'm sorry, but the answer is no," I said firmly. "Perhaps we could discuss a plan where you earn part of the cost through chores or helping neighbors with yard work this spring." His face contorted with anger, a vein visibly pulsing in his forehead. "You're just a selfish old woman. Dad would buy it for me if he was here." The front door opened as Amanda returned earlier than expected. Jordan immediately pivoted toward her. "Grandma won't give me her credit card for the PlayStation," he reported, voice transformed to wounded innocence. "They're in stock right now, but they'll sell out." Amanda's response was immediate and shocking in its intensity. She dropped her purse on the entry table and advanced toward me, face flushed with anger I'd never seen directed at me before. "Are you serious right now? After everything we've done for you," she demanded, voice rising with each word. "You live in our house, rent-free, eating our food, and you can't do this one thing for Jordan." The characterization was so wildly inaccurate I momentarily couldn't respond. Rent-free, I paid more monthly than a luxury apartment would cost. Their food, I purchased nearly every grocery item in the house. "Amanda, you know that's not accurate," I finally managed. "I contribute substantially to this household. $800 for a gaming console is simply not a reasonable expense right now." Her rage escalated exponentially, as if my calm response were further provocation. "You've become so stingy since Dad died. He would be ashamed of how you're treating your only grandson." The invocation of Harold's name used as a weapon against me felt like a physical blow. Harold had been generous but financially prudent, teaching Amanda the value of saving and working for goals. The mischaracterization of his values to manipulate me crossed a line I hadn't known existed until that moment. "Your father taught you better than this," I said quietly, standing my ground. What happened next occurred so quickly I had no time to react. Amanda's hand shot out to the coffee mug she'd placed on the side table, still steaming hot from her drive-through purchase. In one fluid motion, she grabbed it and threw the contents directly at my chest and face. The scalding liquid soaked through my light blue blouse instantly, the burning sensation shocking in its intensity. Coffee dripped down my front as I gasped more from the betrayal than the pain, though the pain was considerable. Jordan's expression transformed in stages: initial shock, giving way to something more disturbing. A slight smirk as he watched me struggling to process what had just occurred. His mother had physically assaulted his grandmother over a video game, and somehow this registered as a victory in his young mind. "Give him the money or get out of my house," Amanda screamed, her voice so loud it seemed to vibrate the family photos on the walls. "I'm sick of your judgment and your constant penny pinching. Jordan deserves better." Jordan, emboldened by his mother's rage, stepped forward with a list of his own demands. "And I want the back allowance you promised, and money for the school ski trip, and a new phone, since mine is practically ancient." Through the thin walls of the suburban home, I was certain neighbors could hear the commotion. Mrs. Abernathy next door was likely pressing her ear to the wall, while Mr. pressing her ear to the wall, while Mr. pressing her ear to the wall. Fulton across the street walking his dog had visibly slowed his pace to listen. In that moment of chaos and pain, a strange calm descended over me. With perfect clarity, I knew I would not give in to these demands, nor would I continue to subject myself to this treatment. Without a word, I walked past them both to my bedroom, closing the door quietly but firmly behind me. My hands shook as I changed out of the coffee-soaked blouse, angry red skin, already showing signs of minor burns across my chest. With methodical precision, I retrieved the small suitcase from under my bed, the one I had packed 2 weeks earlier after my meeting with Leonard, just in case. Into it went additional essentials medications, important documents, and the single photograph of Harold I kept on my nightstand. The rest would have to wait. When I emerged with my suitcase, Amanda's expression registered genuine surprise. For all her ultimatums, she had never expected me to actually leave. The security of my financial support had been taken for granted for too long. "Where do you think you're going?" she demanded, voice slightly less certain. "You made the terms quite clear," I responded, my voice steadier than I felt. "Since I'm not giving Jordan my credit card, I'm respecting your wish for me to leave." As I walked toward the front door, I paused briefly before the large family portrait taken at Amanda's college graduation, Harold beaming proudly between us, arms around both his girls. In that frozen moment of happier times, none of us could have imagined the current reality. "Mom, don't be ridiculous," Amanda called after me, following to the door but not offering to help with my bag. "You're overreacting as usual." Without turning back, I walked out into the January cold, uncertain where I would sleep that night, but absolutely certain I could no longer stay under that roof. The Hampton Inn off Interstate 35 wasn't glamorous, but the front desk clerk didn't ask questions about my arrival without reservations on a Saturday afternoon, suitcase in hand and visible coffee stains on my pants. Despite changing my top, I used the emergency credit card Leonard had advised me to keep separate from my regular accounts, charging 3 nights while I formulated a longer-term plan. In the sterile hotel bathroom, I assessed the damage from the coffee attack. Angry red splotches covered my chest and neck, painful to the touch, but thankfully not severe enough for medical attention. As I gently applied cold, wet towels, the physical pain seemed almost secondary to the emotional wound. My own daughter had deliberately hurt me. My grandson had smiled at my pain. That first night alone, curled on an unfamiliar mattress with its 2 stiff sheets, I finally allowed myself to cry. Not delicate tears, but body-racking sobs that seemed to come from the deepest part of me. I cried for the relationship I had lost, for the daughter I no longer recognized, for the sweet little boy Jordan had once been. I cried for Harold, wishing desperately for his steady presence and wise counsel. Mostly I cried for myself, for the shame of being 70 and essentially homeless, cast out by the family I had sacrificed for repeatedly. When the tears finally subsided, I called the one person I knew would help without judgment. Susan Palmer had taught in the classroom next to mine for 20 years, our friendship outlasting both our teaching careers and her 2 marriages. Franny. Her voice was instantly alert despite the late hour. "What's wrong? Are you okay?" The story spilled out in fits, and starts coffee burns and credit cards and cruel words. Susan listened without interruption until I had emptied myself of words. "You're coming to stay with me," she said, finally, no room for argument in her tone. "Tomorrow morning, no discussions." For the first time in months, I felt the warmth of being cared for rather than used. Monday morning found me in the tastefully appointed office of Marilyn Hernandez, a family attorney Susan had recommended with urgency. Among leather-bound books and credentials, I recounted the progression of events leading to my current situation. "Before we discuss options," Marilyn said when I finished, "I need to understand your financial contributions to Amanda's household. Do you have documentation?" Fortunately, Harold's meticulous record-keeping habits had rubbed off on me over 40 years of marriage. From my suitcase came a folder containing bank statements, copied checks, and a spreadsheet tracking every contribution since moving in with Amanda. Marilyn reviewed the documents, her expression growing increasingly concerned. "Mrs. Thompson, based on these records, you've contributed over $40,000 to household expenses in 18 months, including several large payments toward the mortgage." Amanda was struggling after the divorce, I explained. I wanted to help. Help is one thing, Marilyn replied, sliding the papers into a neat stack. But these contributions combined with your verbal agreement about living arrangements potentially give you legal claim to the property. At minimum, you would be entitled to reasonable notice, before eviction not being thrown out over a credit card dispute. Further discussion revealed more concerning information. My detailed records showed patterns consistent with financial exploitation. The coffee incident constituted assault. Options included a restraining order if I felt physically threatened, though I wasn't ready for such a drastic step against my own daughter. I don't want to punish Amanda, I explained, struggling to articulate complex emotions. I want to protect myself while leaving the door open for reconciliation when she's ready to treat me with respect. Marilyn nodded understanding. Then let's develop a strategy that's firm but not punitive. I suggest we start by securing your legal and financial position without immediately pursuing the assault charges, which we can keep as an option if needed. The plan we developed focused on reclaiming independence rather than retribution, a distinction that helped me sleep that night. That sleep was interrupted by a call from my credit card company's fraud department. Unusual purchasing patterns had triggered security alerts with multiple attempts to use my card after I had left Amanda's house. The charges are coming from gaming websites and food delivery services, the representative explained. Should I authorize them? Absolutely not. I responded, fully awake now. Please cancel that card immediately and send a replacement to my new address. Further investigation with Marilyn's help revealed the extent of financial deception. Jordan had saved my card information on numerous websites making purchases that blended into legitimate charges so I wouldn't notice. Amanda had forged my signature on at least 3 documents, including an attempt to refinance her mortgage with me as co-signer. Most alarming was evidence that someone had called my retirement account provider attempting to change contact information, though security measures had prevented access. With Marilyn's guidance, I filed a police report documenting financial elder abuse. The officer who took my statement seemed unsurprised, mentioning similar cases involving family members were increasingly common. The report would prove crucial later, though I didn't realize it at the time. Susan's spare bedroom became my temporary sanctuary. Though smaller than my room at Amanda's, it offered priceless security. Susan cleared a closet and dresser without being asked, placed fresh flowers on the nightstand, and never once made me feel like a burden. Small kindnesses accumulated daily. A favorite breakfast appearing without discussion. A new novel by an author she knew I enjoyed company during difficult phone calls. Stay as long as you need, she insisted, when I tentatively asked about a timeline. I lived alone too long after George died. Having you here is a gift for me, too. My doctor referred me to Dr. Myers, a therapist, specializing in family trauma and elder issues. In her calm office with its view of snow-covered birch trees, I began processing the complex grief of family betrayal. You're experiencing a significant loss, she explained during our second session, not just of your living situation, but of the relationship you thought you had with your daughter and grandson. I keep wondering where I went wrong. I admitted the question that haunted my sleepless nights. How did I raise someone capable of treating me this way? Amanda's choices are her own, Dr. Myers responded gently. You can examine patterns without accepting blame for her actions. Weekly therapy sessions were supplemented by a support group for elder abuse survivors. Sitting in a circle with 8 others, mostly women in their 60s through 80s, I found unexpected comfort in shared experiences. Different details, but similar patterns, children or grandchildren who viewed elderly relatives as financial resources rather than people deserving dignity and respect. The hardest part is the shame, confessed Martha, a former librarian whose nephew had emptied her accounts. I was too embarrassed to tell anyone until it was almost too late. Heads nodded around the circle, recognition of the isolating shame that often allowed exploitation to continue. Together we practiced reclaiming our voices and our power one difficult step at a time. 2 months after leaving Amanda's house, I gathered with my emerging support team for a strategy meeting. Marilyn brought legal updates. Leonard shared financial projections, and Dr. Myers offered perspective on emotional readiness. Around Susan's dining room table, professionals who had become advocates reviewed options and timelines. We've documented all financial contributions to Amanda's house. Marilyn began opening a comprehensive file. including the $20,000 down payment assistance that was characterized as a gift, but functions legally more as an interest in the property. Leonard reviewed the current state of my secured accounts and the steps taken to recover fraudulent charges. Financially, you're in a stable position now, he concluded. Your pension and investments should support independent living, especially once we recover misappropriated funds. Dr. Myers addressed my emotional readiness for confrontation. You've done tremendous work processing this trauma, she noted. The question is whether you feel prepared for potential escalation when legal notices are served. Together, we developed a timeline for reclaiming both property and dignity with contingency plans for various reactions from Amanda. Through it all, I felt strength returning, not despite vulnerability, but alongside it, like spring growth appearing through melting snow. The legal notice arrived at Amanda's house on a Tuesday, served by courier requiring signature confirmation. The carefully worded document drafted by Marilyn and reviewed repeatedly before sending outlined my property rights, based on substantial financial contributions, demanded accounting of all misused funds, and established a timeline for one of all misused funds. Resolution: before court proceedings would begin. Amanda's response came within hours, a barrage of voicemail messages, escalating from disbelief to outrage to threats. This is ridiculous. Mom began the first message voice artificially calm. Call me so we can discuss this misunderstanding. By the sixth call, pretense had evaporated. You ungrateful witch. After everything I've done for you, if you think any judge will take your side against your own daughter, you're delusional as well as selfish. The final message contained explicit threats. If you push this, I'll make sure Jordan tells everyone exactly how abusive you've been to him. Who do you think they'll believe, a troubled teen or a bitter old woman? Following Marilyn's advice, I didn't respond directly to any message. All communication now flowed through legal channels, a boundary that protected me from manipulation while documenting every interaction. 2 days later, Mrs. Abernathy called with alarming news. From her house next door to Amanda's, she had observed moving trucks in the driveway and furniture being loaded throughout the day. I thought you should know, she said, concern evident in her voice. They're taking everything. Even things I remember were yours from your house with Harold. A quick call to Marilyn set emergency proceedings in motion. By late afternoon, we had secured a court injunction preventing removal of any property until ownership could be properly established. The police report documenting financial abuse proved crucial in convincing the judge of potential asset dissipation. The emergency petition revealed Amanda had begun selling furniture and valuables, including family heirlooms I had brought from my home with Harold. Antique silver candlesticks from Harold's grandmother, the grandfather clock. We had restored together photo albums, documenting generations of family history, all being liquidated in haste before legal proceedings could stop her. My heart ached at the pettiness of it, the willingness to destroy family history for quick cash and revenge. What lessons was Jordan learning through all this? That people were disposable once they stopped being useful, that heritage and history meant nothing compared to immediate gratification. Preparation for the court hearing consumed the following weeks. With Marilyn's guidance, I gathered extensive financial records, documenting every contribution. Mrs. Abernathy and Mr. Fulton provided witness statements about the coffee assault, their accounts, matching mine exactly. Medical records documented the burns and subsequent emotional trauma. Property records established the substantial payments toward Amanda's mortgage, challenging her claim that I had lived rent-free. Perhaps most damning was evidence Jordan himself unwittingly provided. His social media account, set to public, despite Amanda's poor oversight, contained numerous posts bragging about manipulating Grandma's cash and showing off purchases made with borrowed credit cards. Screenshots, preserved by Marilyn's assistant, created a timeline of exploitation that proved impossible to explain away. The courtroom confrontation I had dreaded proved both more and less difficult than anticipated. Seated at the plaintiff's table beside Marilyn, I maintained composure as Amanda and her hastily hired attorney presented a version of events so divorced from reality it would have been comical under different circumstances. My client generously opened her home to her elderly mother. Amanda's attorney argued accepting only voluntary gifts of appreciation in return. Mrs. Thompson's contributions were never requested or required. Bank records told a different story. regular payments coinciding exactly with mortgage due dates, utility bills paid directly from my account checks with March rent clearly written in the memo line. The most surprising moment came during Jordan's testimony. Called as a witness for Amanda's side, he unexpectedly contradicted key elements of her claims under oath. "Grandma definitely paid rent," he stated when directly questioned. "Mom told me the house would be foreclosed if Grandma didn't help with payments." When asked about the coffee incident, his recollection aligned with mine rather than his mother's revisionist version, claiming it was an accidental spill. Mom was really mad about the PlayStation. She threw the coffee on purpose because Grandma wouldn't give her the credit card. Amanda's gasp was audible throughout the courtroom. Whether Jordan's truthfulness stemmed from moral awakening or simply poor coaching beforehand remained unclear, but its impact was undeniable. Judge Carmichael's ruling came after 2 days of testimony. With 27 years on the bench, specializing in family matters, little about human nature surprised her. Her assessment was clinical and comprehensive. "The court finds clear evidence of elder exploitation," she stated, reviewing her notes carefully. "Financial contributions made by the plaintiff establish equitable interest in the property, and the documented assault constitutes grounds for protection. The judgment granted me property rights proportional to my contributions, approximately 30% ownership of the house based on documented payments. Amanda would be required to either buy out my interest or sell the property to divide proceeds accordingly. Additionally, the court ordered repayment of all misappropriated funds, with interest totaling nearly $15,000. Perhaps most importantly, the judgment established a court-supervised transition period. Amanda and Jordan would have 30 days to secure alternative housing, during which a detailed inventory of all property would document ownership of individual items. A security service would ensure compliance with the court order and prevent further removal of assets. As we left the courthouse, Marilyn squeezed my hand supportively. "This is a significant victory, Francine. Not just legally, but for your dignity." Though vindicated by the ruling, I felt the emotional weight of enforcing legal rights against my own daughter. What mother imagines ending up on opposite sides of a courtroom from her child? Yet the alternative, continuing to accept exploitation and abuse, would have destroyed me completely, while teaching Amanda and Jordan that such behavior was acceptable. Exactly 30 days after the court ruling, I returned to the house I had fled 4 months earlier. The security company representative met me at the door, clipboard in hand, documenting the property transfer. The house stood mostly empty, Amanda having taken what she was legally permitted to remove and sold much of the rest out of spite. Standing in the echoing living room where the coffee assault had occurred, I felt an unexpected sense of peace rather than triumph. This wasn't about winning. It was about establishing that I deserved basic dignity and respect. As I toured the vacant room's footsteps echoing on hardwood floors, the doorbell rang unexpectedly. The security representative answered, returning with information that Amanda had arrived unannounced. "She's not supposed to be here without prior arrangement," he explained. "I've advised her of that, but she's insisting she left important documents." "It's all right," I assured him. "I'll speak with her." Amanda's shock at finding me already in the house was evident in her expression. Even more shocking to her was the tall, distinguished man in a charcoal suit standing in what had been the dining room, reviewing documents with another security staff member. "Who is that?" she demanded. "And what is he doing in my house?" That, I explained calmly, is Lawrence Greenfield, my attorney's colleague. And according to court documents, this is now legally my house, at least in part. The stranger in a suit turned, briefly nodding professionally, before returning to his work, his presence, the physical embodiment of the boundaries I had finally established. Reclaiming the empty house proved both more difficult and more healing than anticipated. Beyond the emptiness of removed furniture lay evidence of deliberate damage throughout. Holes punched in walls, carpet stains that appeared intentional, scratches across hardwood floors from furniture dragged rather than carried. Most painful were the missing personal treasures and mementos, items of sentimental, rather than monetary value, that had simply disappeared. Family photographs had been removed from frames, some torn to pieces, and left on my former bedroom floor. Harold's collection of vintage fishing lures, passed down from his father, nowhere to be found. The handmade quilt Jordan had rejected and stepped on at his birthday was missing, though I doubted he had taken it. small cruelties designed to wound rather than profit. Yet for every petty act of destruction, the community around me responded with greater kindness. Susan organized a cleaning crew of former teaching colleagues who arrived with supplies and determination, scrubbing walls and patching holes while sharing stories of classroom mishaps from decades past. Mr. Tate colleagues. Fulton from across the street appeared with his toolbox, repairing cabinet doors hanging from broken hinges. Mrs. Abernathy brought carefully labeled perennials from her garden, helping me plant them along the front walkway as symbols of new growth. "This house has seen enough ugliness," she declared, patting soil around purple coneflower roots. "Time for some beauty again." Gradually, the house transformed from painful reminder to safe haven. Second-hand furniture selected for comfort rather than status. Walls repainted in soothing colors of my choosing. A small writing desk positioned near the bay window, where morning light created perfect reading conditions. Not Harold's house, not Amanda's house, but mine, reflecting choices made without coercion or guilt. With Marilyn's continued guidance, I established new financial security beyond mere account protection. The legal settlement recovered most stolen funds, though some expenses would never be recouped. New accounts with enhanced identity verification prevented unauthorized access. After my experience, I became almost evangelical about financial safety, attending educational workshops at the senior center, and eventually volunteering to share my story with others. Financial exploitation thrives in silence and shame, I explained to a group of widows at the community center. By speaking openly, we remove its power. 6 months after the court hearing, an unexpected letter arrived from Pennsylvania. The return address showed Lakeside Academy, an expensive boarding school I didn't recognize. Inside, a handwritten letter from Jordan stunned me into sitting down abruptly on the porch steps. "Dear Grandma," it began in surprisingly neat penmanship. "I don't expect you to forgive me, but I need to apologize for how I treated you. The court ordered me to attend therapy here at school, and I'm starting to understand how messed up everything was." The letter continued with surprising self-awareness for a 16-year-old, acknowledging the manipulative behavior he had directed toward me and the pleasure he had taken in successful exploitation. Most revealing were his comments about Amanda. "The therapist says Mom has been doing the same patterns her whole life, using people until they have nothing left to give. I watched and learned from her, thinking that's just how you treat people. I know now how wrong that was." He closed with a request for forgiveness, but explicitly stated he expected nothing in return. "You don't owe me another chance. I just wanted you to know I'm sorry, and I'm trying to be better." My response, sent after careful consideration and discussion with Dr. Myers, acknowledged his apology without making false promises. I commended his insight, while maintaining necessary boundaries, leaving the door slightly open for a future relationship if his behavior continued to reflect genuine change. As the painful break with Amanda continued, I discovered the possibility of creating new family connections. Harold's sister Margaret, kept at arm's length during Amanda's adult years, reached out after hearing about the court case through family channels. Our reunion over lunch extended to 5 hours of conversation, tears, and ultimately laughter, beginning the restoration of connections long neglected. Friends became chosen family, filling my home for monthly potluck dinners where stories flowed as freely as coffee. Susan's grandchildren adopted me as an honorary grandmother, bringing artwork for my refrigerator and special rocks for my garden. Holiday traditions were reimagined with this expanding circle. Christmas Eve now celebrated, with a progressive dinner moving between 3 homes on my street, ending with carols around Mrs. Abernathy's antique piano. The authentic connections brought joy that material wealth never could. Relationships based on mutual care rather than exploitation. Most importantly, these connections came without strings attached, expectations of financial support, or emotional manipulation, proving that love could exist without constant transactions. My healing journey continued in expected and unexpected ways. Weekly therapy sessions with Dr. Myers gradually reduced to monthly check-ins, tools for processing complex family grief becoming more internalized. The support group for elder abuse survivors became a source of not just comfort, but empowerment, our collective wisdom, helping newcomers navigate similar situations. New hobbies developed almost accidentally. The garden, planted as healing therapy, became a passion, expanding from Mrs. Abernathy's initial perennials to vegetables and native wildflowers, attracting butterflies and hummingbirds. A community education photography class inspired documentation of this blooming sanctuary, my images eventually displayed in the local library's gallery. Travel dreams deferred during decades of saving for retirement and then suspended during the exploitation became reality. A guided tour of national parks with 3 women from my support group. A literature-themed cruise through the British Isles Harold and I had always planned to take someday. Simple weekend excursions to small towns within driving distance, exploring antique stores and local cafes at my own pace. Throughout this journey, I maintained a journal documenting not just events but insights and growth. Reading back through early entries revealed how far I had come from the shocked victim of that coffee attack to a woman reclaiming independence and joy one deliberate choice at a time. The wisdom gained through this painful experience crystallized gradually into understanding that transformed my approach to relationships. I learned that love doesn't require financial sacrifice or erasure of boundaries. Genuine love respects limits and recognizes the dignity of each person involved. I recognized how enabling harmful behavior ultimately damages both parties. By continually rescuing Amanda from financial consequences, I had participated in preventing her growth toward responsibility. By indulging Jordan's every demand, she was teaching him patterns that would limit his ability to function in healthy relationships. Perhaps most importantly, I embraced the necessity of boundaries even within family, perhaps especially within family. Blood connection doesn't grant unlimited access to resources, emotional or financial. Respecting oneself enough to establish and maintain boundaries isn't selfish but essential for authentic relationships. Finding strength after betrayal taught me resilience I never knew I possessed. The woman who fled with one suitcase that January day was not the same woman who now tended her garden, traveled independently, and advocated for other elders at community meetings. Pain had transformed rather than diminished me. The peace I found in prioritizing self-respect surprised me most of all. For decades, I had defined myself primarily through service to others as teacher, wife, mother, grandmother. Learning to value my own needs without apology opened possibilities for genuine rather than obligatory giving. My story offers hope for others facing similar situations, evidence that new beginnings are possible at any age. The path forward after family betrayal isn't easy, but neither is continuing to accept exploitation and abuse. Sometimes the bravest choice is walking away from toxic relationships, even when those relationships are with people you have loved your entire life. I look toward my future with hard-won wisdom and unexpected courage, grateful for second chances at independence and authentic connection. My journey continues no longer defined by what was taken, but by what I have reclaimed one brave decision at a time. Have you ever had to establish difficult boundaries with family members? I'd love to hear your experiences in the comments below. If my story resonated with you, please subscribe to follow more of my journey and hit the like button to help others find this video. Remember that it's never too late to reclaim your dignity and peace. Thank you for listening, and may you find the courage to honor your own worth in all your relationships.